Okay, this is my case for making a good choice for a bike. Assuming you're going to buy a bike that you're not going to have just for a month or a year or so, something good for you, okay? So here you see a Ninja 300 250 comparison. Notice the peak horsepower is 35 horsepower, okay? This is an R6 chart, and people have been talking about how you shouldn't get an R6 as your first bike, even saying it's too much for a street bike, too much for a sport bike, all that kind of stuff. Notice the peak power is 100 horsepower at about 12,000 RPM. So I put together a section of 600 data. So these are 600 charts going through. Notice they're all peaking at roughly 100, 110 horsepower. This is a comparison at 10K or higher. Okay. So what you want to notice about that is that at 5K, there's only about 20 horsepower. This is a torque curve. You get about 4 pounds of torque across the 4K to 12K range. Again, but about 20 to 40 horsepower between, say, 3 and 5 or 6K, right? All right, so let's look at a 750 here. 750, we're looking at a peak horsepower of about 135 horsepower at, again, about 10, 11K. But at 2, 3, 4, 5K, you're looking at between 30 and 40, 50 horsepower peak, okay? You got to keep that low power in mind as much as a high power. You're talking about riding a motorcycle, unless you want the thing to be revved out consistently, you're not going to see the high-end power. The only way you're going to see the high-end power is if you go up there and get it. At the low-end power, obviously off-idle, short shifting, that's the kind of power you're going to see on a regular basis. That's what cruisers look for in torque. That's what your baggers look for. Sport bikes have that too if they have enough of displacement. You're going to see enough power at the low end. You won't have to race the bike. It'll be much more comfortable to ride. The only thing you need to worry about at that point is the riding position. Okay, so the one problem with a super sport bike type bike is that the pegs are usually too high and the handlebars are too low. So let's talk about leader bikes. Okay, here's a CBR 1000. Peak horsepower is about 140 here, but again at 2 to 3, 4, 5K, your power is around 30 horsepower. Your torque is a little higher, around 50 at the low end, but not excessive. Okay, the X14 is more or less my personal favorite. High peak power is about 150. Gixxer 1000, very easy bike to ride. High peak there about 140, 150. Look at this is a Gixxer 1000 again. Again, the low peak is more than 25, 30 horsepower. So you should familiarize yourself with this chart because the number 1,000 is going to scare off a lot of riders. Okay. Which I think is a shame because this is where some of the really good deals are in sport bikes. If not a sport bike racer like the Gixxer 1000, the more sort of road cruiser, mid-range standard like the FZ1. Plenty of power up and down the power band. Not going to kill you. It's not going to, it's not like you're going to get off idle and you're going to have 150 horsepower right there off idle. The weights are, 450, 500, 550 range. It's an R1. A little bit less power. You can see the dip there in the low end. So one of the things I really don't like about the R1 is that dip below about 5K. It makes it a little hard to ride slow. Definitely more of an advanced rider's bike just because it's a tough filly to manage. But, does a Cowie 300 look better than an R1? I don't think so. The only problem is that obviously the R1 is going to be 2 to 3 times as expensive unless you're talking about a really old one. So here we see some comparison data. Z1000, FZ1, they're all about the same. The Ducatis, the K1200s, the ZX12s, all about the same. The number of horsepower you're getting is roughly the same for any leader bike, anything over 1,000. You don't want to talk about a few horsepower here and there is a big deal. The big issue is that you got plenty of power. The bike weighs more, but not way too much more. It handles a little bit more slowly, but not like way slower. And all around, it's a much easier bike to ride. Maybe it doesn't get the kind of gas mileage you're going to get out of a Ninja 300, but overall, I think the bigger the bikes are with a little bit more power, or in some cases a lot more power, actually I would say usually a lot more power than Ninja 300, the better they are as motorcycles. You want to save gas? Fine. Okay? You're not going to beat a small displacement engine in terms of saving gas. You want something that's fun to ride? I honestly think you got to look at something at least a 600 or higher. The sweet spot is probably more like an 800 in terms of cost and performance and weight and bang for buck and all that kind of stuff. But I think that the leader bikes give you a little bit more for your money. You don't really suffer or have to pay that much of a penalty. And they give you what a motorcycle can and should give you, the most performance for an open air, no roof, no hood, no trunk vehicle. You know, the most performance that you can, and that's really what you're trading for on a motorcycle is performance. At the other extreme, you can trade for miles per gallon, and I honestly think that's about the only redeeming feature of those small bikes. You take away the MPG, I don't see any reason to ride them whatsoever. Some people may not agree with me. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they own these things, or that's all they could afford, or they made that choice, you know, between those two. They made the choice to buy this. That's what they could afford. Now, there's some homerism going on. Call me a leader bike homer. Fine. I'll take an 800. I'll take that cut of maybe 25% in displacement. I'll take a Gixxer 750 and be happy. Okay? Tell me you seriously going to spend the rest of your life riding a Ninja 300 and be happy riding motorcycles. Seriously, tell me that. Or wouldn't you want at least twice the displacement, twice the horsepower, and it's usually more than twice. Okay? Be serious. What are you going to want long term? Now, we can talk about newbies all day long, what's good for a starter, a beginner to ride, all this kind of stuff. But one thing you have to take into consideration is it's plain and simple. Some people just are not going to be good motorcyclists, and some people are going to hop on a 650 or a 750 and not have a problem with it. Okay? For every yin here, there's a yang. For every argument for a small bike, there's an argument against it. There's a very good argument against it in a lot of cases. All I'm going to say here from now on is it's your money, your choice, but you're the one who's going to have to live with it after you buy it, until you sell it and get something else. And trust me, I really doubt that you're going to sell it and get something that's still weak, unless all you care about is the mileage. And the fact that if you have to pick up the bike, this is the lightest bike you can buy, except for buying a smaller, even lighter bike than your Ninja 300. Have fun.